On July 21st, 2023, two films that could both easily finish among the top grossing films of the year will be separately released on the same day. I'm talking about Christopher Nolan's biopic on the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer, and Greta Gerwig's colorful story that we might as well call a biopic, Barbie. With that in mind, a new question has emerged on social media. Why not attend both the same day? It's even earned a pretty cool name, Barbenheimer. I might join that 5-hour theater marathon on July 21st, and if you're viewing this video after that date, I'll be sure to put an update in the YouTube comments. But it also got me to thinking, what other blockbuster films have come out on the exact same day? And is this something that film fans of a different age can also recall as part of their history of cinema? Without further ado, here is my list of other Barbenheimers in classic Hollywood history. I have some ground rules I should probably state up front. First off, I'm only going to include movies that premiered on the same day. I'm sure there are tons of movies that were released within a week or two of one another that would certainly qualify as an amazing double feature, but that's too easy. I recently did a double feature of Elemental and the new Spider-Man, but I was late to the Spider-Man party. Secondly, there should be some advanced buzz on these movies. Maybe a quieter film was released the same day as something that audiences were lining up to see, and which ultimately would ascend to classic status, but for the purpose of this video, I'll try to focus on films at the Barbenheimer level, something that could even be grouped together with a memorable name. And finally, I am positive this list will be missing some amazing film combinations. That's where I'm hoping you all can comment below and offer your own personal stories. But let's go back in time and look at our first Barbenheimer. Summer blockbusters are typically thought of as starting with Steven Spielberg's Jaws in 1975. These films received a lot of advanced publicity, tended to be audience pleasers that fans would willingly come back for multiple viewings, and therefore ultimately rank among the top grossing films of the year. The big studios knew there was only limited ticket buyers in the short summer movie-going season, and so they rarely would schedule these highly anticipated films to go head-to-head against one another the same opening weekend. That's when you earn a lot of your domestic box office. But for our first blockbuster double feature offering from the past, we're going to go back to the summer of 1984, when studios had to plan around another major event that was going to attract a lot of eyeballs, the 1984 Summer Olympics. Starting in late July in Los Angeles, this was the first time the United States would host the Summer Games in more than a half century. Perhaps it was that knowledge that led two major studios, Columbia Pictures and Warner Brothers, to open their potential biggest films of the year on the same day, scheduling the Ivan Reitman comedy Ghostbusters starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Sigourney Weaver to open on the same day, June 8th, 1984, as Joe Dante's Gremlins. Who are you going to call to join you that opening night to go to your local Cineplex for that high-octane double bill? Tickets would be in high demand as Ghostbusters opened number one at the box office with $13.5 million, with Gremlins a close second at $12.5 million. When the annual box office was closed out at the end of the year, Ghostbusters would again rank first at around $220 million, and Gremlins would come in third with a little under $150 million. And it may not be as catchy as Barbenheimer, but I'll call this double feature Grimbusters. I just suggest leaving the theater before midnight, as it seems like both the Ghosts and Mogwai do better before the clock strikes 12. For a second double feature that I'll call Pulp Dreams, let's go ahead and buy a pair of tickets for October 12, 1994, when two highly received films opened the same day in the United States, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction and the Sundance Award-winning documentary Hoop Dreams. This one would require you to find a theater in just a few cities to have an opening night twin bill, as Hoop Dreams opened in just Chicago, New York, and LA that first weekend, before going into wider release a week later. In case you aren't familiar with Hoop Dreams, it tells the story of two Chicago high school students, William Gates and Arthur Agee, who harbor aspirations of becoming professional basketball players. By the end of 1994, it would become the second highest grossing American documentary of all time. Although surprisingly, it wouldn't receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Documentary. The Chicago film critic Roger Ebert would later say Hoop Dreams was his favorite film of the 1990s. And in 2005, the film would be selected as one of 25 movies to be added to the National Film Registry by the United States Library of Congress. I love Hoop Dreams. I've seen it several times, and honestly, it's the one I prefer of this double bill. Pulp Fiction, though, was much better known at the time, after winning the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival earlier that summer, and it would go on to earn 7 Academy Award nominations, including a nod for Best Picture as well as a Best Director nomination for Quentin Tarantino. Acting nominations would be earned by John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, and Uma Thurman, but it would ultimately win just 1 Oscar.
Quentin Tarantino, Roger Avary for
Best Original Screenplay, the first of 2 Oscars won by Tarantino, who really became a household name after this 1994 release. As of this video release, IMDb ranks Pulp Fiction as the 8th best movie of all time. Maybe that's a little too high for this classic Hollywood fan, but maybe some of those watching this video can remember watching this unique film on opening night back in 1994. Now, let's go back a little further for our next opening night double feature, to January 29th, 1964, for something we can call man's favorite strange sport, an interesting pairing of Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove and Howard Hawks' Man's Favorite Sport. Watching these 2 films together on one night back in 1964 probably would have required you to go to 2 different theaters in the same town, or maybe find a drive-in theater with a very diverse scheduling director. Starting the evening with Kubrick's dark comedy, you need to remember that the world in early 1964 is still in the throes of global brinkmanship by the Soviet Union and United States. Under the watchful eye of Kubrick and the brilliant acting of Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, and Slim Pickens, you'll use the movie to ride off into the skies to show that sometimes you need to face your fears with humor. Dr. Strangelove earned 4 Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Peter Sellers, although it wouldn't take home any golden statues. It has been listed, however, by the American Film Institute as one of the top 30 films of all time. But how about a second film that night that's a little less stark? Who better to turn to than Howard Hawks as he paired Rock Hudson and Paula Prentice in a screwball comedy that pays homage to his much better known Bringing Up Baby. This would be the 4th to the last film of Hawks' great career, and his final comedy. I really enjoy it, and I've got fond memories of watching it with my grandmother over the years. For one final twin bill, I want to go back in time and attend 2 more opening nights together. Let's return to April 9th, 1976, for a double feature of the highly anticipated All the President's Men, director Alan Pakula's adaptation of the best-selling book about Watergate, written by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, and we'll pair it with what would end up being the legendary Alfred Hitchcock's final film, Family Plot. On opening night this particular April, American audiences are approaching the bicentennial summer of 1976, and the United States is just beginning to get out of the grips of Watergate and the Vietnam War. Reminding audiences about the Nixon presidency, All the President's Men earned 8 Academy Award nominations and won 4 statues. Jason Robards for Best Supporting Actor, William Goldman Adapted Screenplay, as well as Best Art Direction and Best Sound. Sadly, the underrated Pakula lost out in the Best Director category, and the movie would also controversially not win Best Picture, as Sylvester Stallone's Rocky earned the split decision in each of those categories. In 2015, The Hollywood Reporter asked Academy voters everywhere which movie they would go back in time to and award Best Film if they had a second chance to vote again, and All the President's Men ended up topping that poll. But we still have one more movie to watch in our double feature, which I guess I'll call All the President's Family Plot Men? Yeah, I'll keep working on those names.
The master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, is involved in a family plot.
It's time for some Hitchcock. The world didn't know it at the time, but this would be Alfred Hitchcock's final movie. But it was still a big deal, as it had been 4 years since his last directorial offering, Frenzy. Family Plot isn't awful, but it obviously isn't Hitchcock at his best. Still, I've taken the time machine back to 1976, and I just want to enjoy the moment of seeing a new Hitchcock movie in the theater. And those are our double feature offerings in advance of the coming Barbenheimer. Are you going to be attending both of those movies on opening night or soon after they hit the theaters? Do you have memories of seeing 2 movies on the same night that you can recall? I'd love to hear your comments and suggestions below. I know this video was a little something different, but I promise you we have more classic Hollywood coming up very soon. And until the next time, I'll see you at the movies.